You're gonna love it.
Before this video actually begins, I have to address a really weird and just frankly crazy coincidence. So I've been working on this video since like the start of November, but as I was putting the finishing touches on this video, I see a thread on Twitter by Ron Llama, his @ is Thomas Mabel, I'll put it on screen, called "What if Wario was entirely based on the Wario Land series in Smash Bros?" It's a great thread, a lot of great drawings and stuff, but we independently came up with a lot of similar or sometimes even the same attacks. Again, this is pure coincidence because neither of us knew about each other until the 7th of December when this thread was uploaded. So this is just, here's like a disclaimer, I did not intend to rip this guy off. Same for him and me. This is just a pure coincidence, and please check him out. His thread is really good. There are some differences. I won't spoil everything because, you know, you gotta watch the rest of the video for that. But on to the actual video now.
Here we go!
Wario Land and Smash Bros. Are two franchises that I really love. And as you'd expect, Wario being playable in Smash Bros. Is pretty fun for me. Although it is a bit disappointing that the majority of his moveset doesn't come from Wario Land. I understand the decision to make Wario a more weird and wacky character, drawing more heavily from the WarioWare series, as both of those things are big parts of who Wario is. Now, for this video, I'm not looking to fix Wario or saying, "Nintendo, please hire me, I made your game better," but I thought it would be interesting to see how Wario's moveset would look if he was introduced to the series not in Brawl, but the game that came before it, Melee. Melee was released in November of 2001, meaning it's in the perfect sweet spot of being released before the first WarioWare game, but after Wario Land 4. This would mean that Wario's moveset in this platform fighter would be almost entirely based off of the games where he's actually platforming. Now before we get started, there are a few things I want to mention. While Wario did appear in a bunch of Mario spin-offs like Mario Party or Mario Kart, I'm not really going to be pulling from these games when considering the moves he'll be using. You could apply the same logic to any of these characters, but they don't have any moves from Mario Kart. A few of Wario's moves will be borrowed from other characters, or he'll use moves that he possesses in the Smash games where he's actually playable. I know this is a little uncreative, but I think most of my choices made sense. Relatedly, not every single move has to have an origin. Wario does have a lot of source material to pull from, but there's nothing wrong with just giving people a good old punch. The model I'll be using to visualize this stuff is actually from Melee, being Wario's trophy model. I like this model. It's very similar to the one that was used in renders from the Nintendo 64 era, which works nicely. Melee was sort of in a unique spot when it came to character designs. Most of these characters hadn't made an appearance on the GameCube yet, so they ended up using designs from the previous era. It's especially jarring with some of the Mario characters, whose designs were updated ever since Luigi's Mansion, and have essentially stayed the same ever since. This model was rigged by Zinnis22, who makes a lot of amazing 3D stuff, and is way more skilled at using Blender than me. Definitely check him out, as he's Hideki Nakanuma approved. So with all that being said, let's get into Wario's basic motions. Smash characters generally have pretty basic looking idle stances, with a few animations that play if you're standing still for a while. For his idle stance, I'd keep things simple, just having him gently move his arms like in Virtual Boy Wario Land. For his first idle animation, I'd have him doze off for a second before waking himself up, kinda like Kirby. This is a reference to his idle animation in Wario Land 3. His next idle animation would be this impatient animation from Wario Land 4, which happens whenever you stand still for too long during an escape sequence. Now, Wario Land 4 had a couple different animations that'd play out if you left Wario alone for too long. In regular stages, he'd either start jumping rope or curling dumbbells. Before a boss, instead of jumping rope, he'd instead lift a barbell above his head. All of these animations are great, but I think it'd be a little weird for him to pull out exercise equipment just for an idle animation in Smash. Don't worry though, we'll come back to these ones eventually. For his walk and run animations, I'm keeping things simple, taking them directly from Virtual Boy Wario Land. His bouncy walk cycle keeps his arms at his sides, while his run animation has him swing his arms more wildly. For his jump animation, I'd mimic the Wario Land 4 animation, where he looks upwards. All characters in Smash have 4 jump animations: jumping forwards, double jumping forwards, jumping backwards, and double jumping backwards. The forward and backward jumps don't have any different functionality other than influencing the character's hurtbox, so the main concern here for me is making sure Wario's normal jump and double jump are distinct from one another. In Ultimate, Wario's backflip is actually a reference to Wario Land game, as it's almost identical to this little hop he does on the victory screen after defeating a boss. However, I think it's better to have this as his double jump. Most characters do some sort of flip to signify that they've transitioned from their normal jump into a double jump, and this pretty much fits perfectly. Alright, I know you didn't come here to hear me talk about double jump animations. You came here to see how this guy would actually play. For his jab, I'm actually going to be stealing it from Luigi. In this magical world where Wario is in Melee, I'd probably also make it so that Luigi's moveset would be inspired by Luigi's Mansion, as it did get released on the GameCube the same year as Melee. Anyway, my thought process for Wario's jab is that his body shape doesn't really allow for a lot of kicking attacks. The guy's legs are absolutely tiny compared to his midsection. So I thought, if anyone's going to be attacking people with their massive ass, it might as well be Wario. I think it fits him a lot more than it does Luigi anyway. For his down tilt, I decided to give him his roll attack from Wario Land 2, 3, and 4. This roll action is different from Wario's other attacks in the sense that he can't activate it on command, as it requires a slope to initiate it. It does damage enemies and blocks, and since it hits low to the ground, I figured it would work well as a regular attack. His forward tilt would be the same one as in Smash 4, a basic punch. There's no reference here, I just like how it looks. His up tilt would also be from actual Smash Bros. I've heard some people claim that this is a reference to an unused chest opening animation from Wario Land 4. While it does look sort of similar, I find that kinda hard to believe. Like, you're telling me that Sakurai looked through all the possible sprites from Wario Land 4 and settled on using some random unused animation, but not his ground pound?
Mamma mia!
Regardless, it's a fine move, so it can stay on Melee Wario. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, how I'm handling Wario's shoulder bash. Wario is a pretty unique case in Smash Bros, since his most iconic move was his forward smash in Brawl was removed entirely in Smash 4, and then got put back as his dash attack in Ultimate. I can't think of another character who's had an important move of theirs completely change context like this, but both choices make sense. So which did I pick? I ultimately decided to put shoulder bash as his forward smash. I thought that, since the shoulder bash is the attack you use the most by far across all the Wario Land games, it made the most sense to make it his primary forward-facing kill move. As for his dash attack, I decided to use his running attack from Wario Land 4. Unlike his shoulder bash, this attack wouldn't really make sense in another context. It's literally an attack that activates while Wario is running at full speed, so it was a perfect fit. Well, it's time for Wario's smash attacks, his main kill moves. I already went over his forward smash in the last section, so I won't spend too much longer on it, but another reason I felt that it worked so well is because, in Virtual Boy Wario Land, you can somewhat charge it. This is the only Wario Land game where Wario doesn't immediately dash forward when you press the B button. You only move when pressing the D-pad. It doesn't make the move any more powerful, it just helps you time it. It's not super useful, since I think most people would just press B from a standstill just fine in any other Wario Land game, but it works well in the context of Smash. For Wario's up smash, I'd have him lift up his barbell from his idle animation that plays before fighting a boss. Since he's lifting a giant weight, it'd definitely be his slowest smash attack, but it'd be extremely powerful, hitting on both sides. For his down smash, I came up with this attack. Wario would do a little hop upwards and then slam down on the ground. His feet would get bigger in order to match the hitboxes, which would hit on both sides of him, as most down smashes do. I loosely based this on the first attack he ever used, being his ground pound, specifically the one from Super Mario Land 2. I know he doesn't really attack with his feet, but he faces the camera instead of off to the side in this game. It's just a creative liberty, and it's mostly just to differentiate it from one of his aerials, which we'll talk about right now actually. Starting with Wario's most obvious aerial is his down air. In every single Wario Land game, this is his main downwards attack while in the air, and it somehow isn't part of his moveset in actual Smash Bros. Complaining aside, this move is pretty self-explanatory. Wario sticks his booty cheeks out and spikes whoever he hits. Now, this move has both appeared as just an attack that doesn't influence Wario's movement, and as an attack that plummets you straight down, also known as a stall and fall in Smash Bros. Thankfully, stall and fall aerials didn't exist until Brawl, so there's no confusion to be had here. For neutral air, it's also a form of the ground pound, but not really one you'd expect. In Virtual Boy Wario Land, if you press down on the D-pad while airborne, but you don't have a power-up that permits ground pounding, you'll do this belly flop animation. It's entirely useless, but it makes for a decent neutral air. From one obscure attack to another, we have his up air. This isn't really an attack, but bear with me. In the first Wario Land game, if you had the bull horns, you could use them to cling onto the ceiling by pressing up. You can't use this to attack enemies, and hitting most enemies from underneath just causes them to flip over, no matter what power-up state you're in. Translating this to Smash though, I'd have Wario quickly stick his head up, kinda like King K. Rool's up air in Ultimate, although this version definitely wouldn't have the egregious end lag attached to it. I'm stealing yet another move from the Mario Brothers, and this time it's a forward air. In this perfect world of Wario being in Melee, Mario's forward air would definitely be his kick for Mario 64. I definitely think a big dumb punch attack fits Wario a lot better, and I'd also make it function more like Dr. Mario's forward air, being an outright kill move instead of a meteor. Besides, this pose almost looks like an aerial shoulder bash, and after all, isn't that Wario's signature attack? Most characters in Smash tend to have back airs with no real origin, and it's understandable why. I can't think of too many times in a video game where a character I'm controlling is jumping and has a move that attacks behind them instead of in front of them. For this reason, I'm going to give Wario back air similar to that of Captain Falcon, just having him swing his arm behind him. I do like Wario's current back air in Smash Bros., but his up air already has him thrusting his head up, so I decided not to have him do a similar motion for his back air. So if you've played a Wario Land game before, you probably have one thing on your mind. Where are Wario's transformations? In case you haven't played a Wario Land game, one thing that makes them unique is that Wario will have reactions to getting hit by specific enemies. Ever since Wario Land 2, they've sort of served as power-ups, used prominently in puzzle solving in place of traditional Mario-style power-ups. I thought it would be most appropriate to reserve these as special moves, since I can't think of anything more special than all these wacky transformations. I'll start with the most simple one, his up B. Wario turns into a spring and does a big vertical jump. I think it would go a bit higher than Luigi's up B, and it would have a hitbox while Wario's rising. You would be able to drift left and right while rising as well. Basically, it'd be a one-to-one recreation of how it works in Wario Land 4, except you don't ascend indefinitely until you hit the ceiling. On the topic of Luigi, I'm stealing yet another move from him, but I promise this is the last one. For Wario's side B, I decided to use Fire! This is one of Wario's most common power-ups, appearing in every Wario Land game from 2 onwards. In these games, Wario runs from side to side, but you're able to jump in this state. How it would work in Smash is a bit different. While pressing forwards and hitting B, Wario would stop in place and begin charging the attack, just like Luigi. Upon releasing it, he'd catch on fire and blast forwards, again like Luigi. In Wario Land 4, this fire thing had 3 sort of stages to it, changing colors whenever you collided with the wall. I really like this, and I think it's a great visual indicator, and as such, in Smash I'd make it so that the move has only 3 levels of charge. If Wario charges the move for no time at all, it'd be blue. Charging it for a little bit, he turns green, and full charge is red. Charging Luigi's side B for too long will make him get tired, so for this animation I'd have Wario turn into a pile of ash for the duration of the end lag. So those are Wario's recovery moves, which were the easiest to figure out. Neutral B and down B can be pretty much anything, and I went back and forth trying to decide which power-ups I could use for these. Now I've got to reiterate that I'm not claiming this to be the best possible moveset, and that when translating these moves into the context of Smash, some liberties needed to be taken. But I think the ones I've come up with would be pretty fun if they were real. For Wario's neutral B, I chose Frozen Wario. This one barely counts as a power-up since you lose control of Wario, but it is used in a few puzzles which lets you slide through otherwise impassable hazards. In the context of Smash, I'm making this sort of a backdash. Think of it like Alucard's backdash in Symphony of the Night, except it has a hitbox attached to it. Not only would this be a relatively safe retreat, but the hitbox would be a weak one that sends vertically, allowing Wario to combo into most of his aerials on hit. Now, am I really gonna give a character I'm creating an absolutely safe combo tool just because I think it would be pretty cool?
Of course I am!
For down B, the candidate I found most fitting was Flat Wario. When he's in this form in the Wario Land series, Wario's ground movement is severely limited, but it allows him to glide through the air and reach areas he otherwise wouldn't be able to. In Smash, I'd translate this to be sort of a counterattack when on the ground. Now normally I don't like counters, I think they're boring and sometimes feel thrown onto characters that could have had different moves there instead. However, this move works a bit differently in that it's not some safe combo breaking tool that activates on hit. When using the move on the ground, Wario squishes himself down to the ground, being short enough to evade most attacks in the game. He can't move at all while he's squished. After a short period of time, he springs up, sending the other character up vertically, again allowing him to combo into his aerials. Think of it less like a counter and more like a spot dodge with a hitbox at the end. In the air, it works completely differently. When using the move in the air, Wario again starts by squishing himself down, but if the B button is held, he begins to glide downwards like a sheet of paper, just like in the Wario Land games. This would give him excellent horizontal recovery while keeping his hurtbox small, with the only downside being that he can't grab ledges, due to Wario's hands being kinda squished in this state too. Releasing the button makes him spring up the same way as he does on the ground. I'd probably put a limit on how long he's allowed to glide for, since being able to do it indefinitely would make it a little too easy to get back onto the stage. The grounded version of this move would not allow Wario to stay squished by holding the B button, since I feel like it'd be very annoying to try and hit him when his model is literally pancaked onto the ground. Anyone who's tried to grab Kirby while he's crouching knows what I'm talking about. Speaking of grabs, let's talk about Wario's throws. His forward and up throws would essentially be the same as how they work in the Wario Land games, where he just tosses you forward or upwards with one arm. I'd make his forward throw into a kill throw, which is somewhat unconventional, but I think it fits, since throwing enemies into a wall like this in Wario Land is usually a surefire way to get rid of them. The same could be said for up throw, however in Smash I'd opt to make this his main combo throw, since I think a lot of his kit would favor verticality. Basically, the forward throw is the one where he charges it, and the up throw is the one where he doesn't. Simple enough. His back throw and down throw would be the exact same as Brawl. I like him, and I can pretend that they're more variations of his ground pound. Before anyone points this out in the comments, yes, the one where Wario sticks out his butt is his back throw in Brawl. For some reason in Smash 4, they swapped his forward and back throws, meaning the one where he twirls you around like Mario was his forward throw instead of how it is now. Finally, I need to bring attention to a detail that was included in Project M. In case you don't know, Project M was a full-scale mod for Brawl that changed the mechanics and characters to be closer to that of Melee. Some people hate it for this reason, but I think most of us can agree that no matter what you think about the gameplay changes, the team put in a lot of love and dedication to making the game as good as possible. This included reworking some characters, and Wario was one of them. The Project M team also tried giving Wario a moveset that was heavily inspired by Wario Land, and I really like it. Their interpretation of the character is pretty much the best playable version of Wario in one of the best unofficial Smash games, at least in my books. I also tried not to take ideas that they came up with, like making Wario's side B his shoulder bash, but one idea that I need to include is something kind of overlooked, his pummel. When Wario pummels you after a grab, a coin pops up, which is the same hit effect that triggers when you hit Mario's up B. This is such an absolutely genius decision, and it fits Wario so well. Like, not only is Wario gonna kick you while you're down, but he'll take a penny out of your wallet too, just because he's that much of a greedy son of a gun. It's one of those things where I would never have came up with it in 1,000 years, but it's extremely fitting and perfect. With all of his actual moves covered, it's time for the good stuff. His taunts, win poses, stages, costumes, and all that junk. Now Wario is a guy who's just oozing with personality and bravado, so coming up with just one taunt was pretty hard. He just has so many good lines to choose from.
That's okay.
I guess I haven't mentioned this yet, but throughout the video I've been using voice clips of Wario that are primarily from the N64 era. Not only do I prefer this version of his voice,
Wario is the best!
as opposed to the super deep version he has in the present day,
Wario win! Ha ha ha!
but these higher pitched voice clips were the ones used in Wario Land 4. Being that I'm just one guy and I do not have access to Nintendo's extensive archives of uncompressed Charles Martinet recordings, I'm just gonna reuse clips from a couple of these games. Anyway, for his taunt I'd have him flex his arm and say,
I'm gonna win!
This is part of his quote from Mario Kart 64, which is weird because he'll say it after he's already won a race. As mentioned before, Wario flexing on his opponents is nothing new here, and I think it works well as a taunt. For the last of the gameplay related actions, I'll talk about his sleeping and shield break animations. When Wario's put to sleep, he'll lie down on his back, just like from the beginning of Wario Land 2. It also differentiates it from his idle pose. For his shield break animation, he lurched from side to side, struggling to keep his balance, as a reference to Drunk Wario, again from Wario Land 2. Now on to his victory poses. For Wario's victory theme, I actually would just have him use the Mario series one. I know this sort of contradicts the whole point of this video, that Wario is a very unique individual because of the Wario Land games, but he's still a Mario character at heart. He has appeared alongside Mario characters in more games than I can count. I feel the same way about Yoshi, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. If I had to pick a victory theme for Wario, I'd make it the end of level jingle from Wario Land 3, but orchestrated in Melee's style, obviously. Fittingly, in his first victory pose, he'd throw up a peace sign the same way he does in Wario Land 3. For the next one, an obvious choice would be this pose he does after beating a boss in Wario Land 4, definitely my favorite one.
Super duper 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 Wario!
For the last one, this one where he laughs at you from actual Smash Bros is too good not to include. I feel like it'd be ethically wrong for Wario not to laugh at whoever's just lost. Now onto his costume colors. In the first few Smash games, characters had to have an alternate costume for each of the 3 team colors, being red, blue, and green. For Wario's red costume, it's mostly based on the colors of the Virtual Boy, where red and black were the only 2 colors it could display. I did leave his gloves white, since Wario attacks with his arms a lot, and being able to see where his hands are would help for readability, which is important in the middle of a fight. The blue costume I made doesn't have a direct reference, I just thought it looked nice. This green costume is the same one used in both Mario Tennis and Mario Golf on the N64. I based this pink costume on Princess Shokora from Wario Land 4. No, not that Princess Shokora. Much better. Finally, you know I've got to put a skin for your boy.
Waluigi!
In terms of stages that'd represent Wario, there are a lot of potential candidates to choose from. What I came up with is something that represents a few Wario Land games at once. If the title screen of Wario Land 2 is to be believed, then Wario's castle is on a seaside. So for his stage in Smash, I'd have it take place on top of his castle. The song playing would be an orchestrated version of the main theme from Wario Land 1. I'd have it be about as big as Dreamland, with the outermost edges being raised and a dip at the center. In the background, I'd have Captain Syrup's ship, and this part of the mast would serve as a central platform. Now, my favorite types of stages are the ones that can be enjoyed both in a casual and a competitive setting. So when items are turned on, enemies from on top of the pirate ship will throw things at you. This may seem like a relatively normal stage, just a couple of platforms and a few gentle slopes toward the center, but when the timer reaches 1 minute, or a player is on their last stock, you'll hear,
Hurry up!
When this happens, the pirate ship will sink into the ocean, and the background will distort, like in Wario Land 4. The actual Hurry Up song from Wario Land 4 does take over a minute to really get going, but if it were actually in Smash, it'd be a remix anyway. Basically, my thought process here would be that if the pirate ship is gone, it would force players into fighting each other directly on the stage, and it'd definitely feel more hectic towards the end of a fight. It's sort of similar how the music will change on the Street Fighter stage in Smash, or on the Ethereal Gate stage in Rivals of Aether, except here it'd affect gameplay a bit more. And I think that pretty much covers everything. Putting Wario in Melee is definitely one of the things I've thought about doing most if I had a time machine and the ability to telepathically speak to Sakurai. I know that a lot of you are probably thinking, why don't you just make a mod of Melee, or even a mod of Brawl? And the answer is simply, it's way above my skill level. Just getting the poses to look right was enough of a challenge for this video, so actually animating it smoothly would be something I'm frankly unequipped for. Even regardless of animating it, I don't know the first thing about actually balancing or programming a character in a fighting game like this. I'm sorry if this ending feels a bit disappointing, but to be fair, YouTube is full of other videos similar to this one, in that they're just speculating or brainstorming how certain characters would work in Smash. Once again, I have to recommend that you check out Project M, or as it's now called, Project Plus. There's also another mod called Smash 2, which is essentially the same idea, turning Brawl into Melee. That one's definitely much more Melee inspired. I don't think it's quite as good as Project M, but it's still worth checking out. They have their own pretty good version of Wario. Again, it's just called Smash 2. I know there are a few Smash fan games that have Wario as a playable character, some even using Wario Land sprites, but I'm just sticking to what I know for the most part. Thanks again to Zinnis for getting this Wario model working. My artistic skills are not good at all, so just being able to pose the model in Blender was a godsend. Zinnis is pretty dang good at using the software, and beyond just the rigging, he helped get the lighting and stuff to look nice, and give it that N64 era feel. He did make some edits to this model, mainly with the hands, so it's his call on whether he wants to publicly release it or not, but this is an edit of the trophy model that was already in Melee, so if you're already good at using 3D modeling software, there's nothing stopping you from downloading the Melee model and playing with it yourself. In conclusion, Wario Land is pretty cool, Melee is very cool, but the coolest thing of all is you. Give the video a like, and subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw here today, and I'll see you the next time an idea escapes my brain. Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye bye bye!